Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 8 of your weekly movie rewind. Here with me, Garrett Neal, as always, back as your host, and you're listening to this show on the wonderful Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection. And week 8, we got 2 more episodes, and then probably gonna have to take a quick break for spring break. But then hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be back next quarter here at DePaul. We got another pretty big week this week. As always, we'll start off with the top 5 in the box office. Then we'll go into some news. Do have a few news stories I want to talk to you guys about this week. And then finish off with the new releases. So without further ado, Black Panther, still killing it, came out to a whopping $111.5 million in its second weekend. And I think what it might be more impressive is the 44.7% drop, which is very good, especially for a movie that makes that kind of money. And so we're going to take a look at how that weekend holds up against the other biggest weekends. It's going to come in as the second highest grossing second weekend of all time. This is via Box Office Mojo. Again, this is all domestic, and this is all not adjusted for inflation. I think if you adjust for inflation, Black Panther right now is like just grazing the top 100 of the highest grossing films of all time. Not adjusting for inflation just makes things no fun to talk about. So that's why I don't do that too much on this show. But we're number 1, of course, is The Force Awakens, which had 149 million and the second weekend, which was a 39% drop. So again, that just shows that was like an absolute force of nature. Then Jurassic World, which is third, that had a 106 million opening second weekend. I keep wanting to say opening, but second weekend, which was a 49% drop. So pretty comparable to Black Panther. Right now, Jurassic World might be one of the best comparisons for Black Panther. It hasn't made quite as much. Opening weekend, it had 208 million, which was again a little bit. I think that was actually a little bit more than a Black Panther made, but now it's fallen a little bit behind. But they're still tracking relatively similar. Then fourth is Avengers, which did have a higher grossing opening weekend, but Avengers dropped 50% in its second weekend. So its second week was 103 million, and then number 5 was 90 million for Beauty and the Beast, the live action film, which dropped 48% from its opening weekend. But that one like didn't make quite as much as some of these other movies. Its opening weekend, it made 174 million, whereas I believe all those other movies all made over 200 million in their opening weekend. So yeah, they did. So it's not surprising there's a little bit of a gap there. But it's interesting now that Black Panther is actually kind of tracking ahead of all the other Marvel movies and ahead of Avengers, which was kind of the capstone of all of them. It is the best second weekend of any comic book movie, no surprise there. And it is now currently the third highest grossing film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe after just 2 weeks, which is just incredible to think about. And again, now that it's tracking ahead, if it continues to hold well and it continues to track ahead of Avengers, it might. I wouldn't be surprised if it did end up outgrossing Avengers after it's all said and done. In looking at, just kind of wanted to see if I could try and gauge where it might go in the third weekend. So looking at again those highest grossing second weekends of all time. Jurassic, then going into the third week, Jurassic World going from the second to third week dropped 48%. Star Wars Force Awakens dropped 39%. Avengers dropped 46%. So that actually did held a little bit better going into its third week. And then Beauty and the Beast dropped 50% going into its third week. So all across the board, they all dropped about the same amount going from the second week to the third week as they did going from the first to the second week. So I would expect Black Panther to make around $60 million next weekend, which would be huge if it did do that. And I kind of want to err on the side of it's going to outperform expectations, and I think that might start to happen as people are, since it has blown expectations out of the water so much in these first few weeks, that it's now people are going to start like overestimating it maybe. But I think around 60 million for next weekend is where it could land, and that would I don't think that would move it up the Marvel Cinematic Universe chart, but it would keep it tracking above Avengers. Actually, it would. I lied. It would move it up the Marvel Cinematic Universe chart, because right now we got the top three. Avengers is obviously number one, which had $623 million in its domestic gross. Then Age of Ultron is $459 million, and right now Black Panther is at $411. So if it does get around 60 million, it'll be, in just 3 weeks, it'll be the highest grossing, or the second highest grossing Marvel Cinematic Universe film, which is crazy. And again, I think it may hold through and end up outgrossing domestically, at least, the Avengers. Because there's not a whole lot coming out that will compete with it, at least. And I think Ready Player One is really the biggest thing, that even though I've seen some people projecting that Ready Player One may not hold well, I think Ready Player One will at least have a very big opening weekend, and by that point it'll be week 6 or 7 or something like that for Black Panther, so it won't take too much. But I mean, in between here and Ready Player One, which comes out the last week of March, the only thing I think is Wrinkle in Time. We've got coming out in 2 weeks, which has some big names in it. It's a relatively known property, so that could potentially. I'm relatively interested in that. But I don't know that it really has a ton of. I can't gauge the hype around it that much. Then Pacific Rim 2 is the only one that I could think. Not because I think that's going to like blow up at the box office, but just because it's an established property that has a little bit of hype around it. Again, I'm kind of biased because I'm more excited for that, even though I don't think it's going to be that good. If that gets good reviews, it might, because again, that point it's going to be like week 5 or 5 or 6 for Black Panther, so it's going to have tailed off. But I mean, if those don't do it, it might make it a couple months while hanging around in the at the number one spot, perhaps, if it really does hold well. And just going to look at what it would take to be the highest grossing third weekend. The highest grossing third weekend was, again, The Force Awakens at 90 million. Avatar had 68 million its third weekend, and Avengers had 55. So I would definitely think Black Panther will get above that 55 and probably be the third highest. If it got above 68 and it beat Avatar, that would be insane. And if it even got close to 90, I don't even know. This would just be a whole new beast, because that I mean, Force Awakens is just a monster. It's kind of funny going through on Box Office Mojo. You can list the movies by top opening weekends, and it goes from second week all the way to 12th. And just the longer you go, it's just like you see Titanic go from like 25th on the highest second opening weekend, and it just like continuously moves up, and then once from like week, I think like 7, from week 8 through 12, it's just all Titanic, just because that movie had the most insane legs of all time. It's crazy. And Avatar also had much like really good legs. Now that I see it, it's just those two movies were just in their own league. But other movies did make money this weekend. I mean, there's just so much to talk about for Black Panther. But going to look at the other ones, Game Night came in at number 2. I think kind of a surprise number 2 there, at least for me. This is the R-rated comedy starring Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, and coming from Warner Brothers. This surprised me. These type of films, these kind of over-the-top, really goofy R-rated comedies are not generally my type of thing, but this one actually surprised me. I enjoyed it a lot, and it got some pretty good word of mouth. It seems like it ended up taking in that second spot, definitely meeting expectations there. At number 3, Peter Rabbit, in its third week, coming in at $12.7 million. That one will continue to fall. I don't know. I have not too much to say there. Coming in at number 4 was another new release this weekend, Annihilation, which had 11 million in just 2,000 theaters. Black Panther had 4,000, Game Night had 3,500, Peter Rabbit had 3,700. Annihilation came in at number 4 at just 2,000 theaters. I mean, we don't get to another film that has 2,000 theaters or less until number 8, which was The Greatest Showman. Just incredible. And it averaged $5,500 per theater, which is very good, better than anything else in the top 10 outside of Black Panther. And it seems like if Paramount had really committed to this and actually let it go like a wide release and maybe around 3,000, it could have done better. I mean, 11,000 isn't bad, but Paramount did not have a lot of confidence in this. But I felt like it became a self-fulfilling prophecy because then they just didn't release it in that many theaters, and so it didn't make possibly as much money as it could have. But to be fair, it did have a C Cinema score, which surprised me because I thought this film was great. I can understand not liking it as much. It raises a lot of questions and doesn't really answer all of them, and that some people like me will think that's really cool, that it just has so many questions, so much happens. It's crazy. But at the same time, it could be seen as kind of lazy that it doesn't really... There's so many questions that it feels like it doesn't even attempt to answer. And I was kind of like, yeah, like that thing there doesn't really make sense at all, but it looked cool at least. It does have high ratings on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, so maybe a word of mouth will get around for this. I don't know. I think it's definitely something that's worth seeing. I don't know if it's something that you'll like or not, but it's just so much happens, and it's so weird, and the visuals are really good. So I'm a huge fan. And coming in at number 5 is 50 Shades Freed. Why, guys? Come on. Just stop. Just stop seeing the movie, please. Please. That's all right, because it's not going to be in the top 5 next weekend, and I won't have to talk about it anymore. All right, and the last thing to mention for that round of the box office is the last wide release was Every Day, which came in at number 9 in just 1,600 theaters. Brought in about $3 million, which was perfectly fine. Met studio expectations for that. I did not see that one this weekend. probably won't get around to that one. Not that I'm not a fan of a good teen romance based on a book movie, but love Simon. I'm excited, coming out soon-ish. But it, I don't know. It hasn't gotten the greatest reviews, I don't think, and maybe, I mean, there's only 2 really wide releases coming out this next week, so maybe if I got time, I might go see it if it's at a theater near me, but not one that I'm really making time for, because once you get, I'm trying to watch like the new movies coming out each weekend, and then maybe if there's like a weekend where there's only 1 or 2 new releases, I'll do some catch up, so we'll see. And then the top per screen is Mary and the Witch's Flower, which brought in $67,813 in 3 theaters. This is a film that is directed. I don't remember who it's directed by. I should have written that down, but it's a spin-off, or it's a guy who worked on a lot of the Studio Ghibli movies, which I am huge fans of. I'm saying too much, man. I gotta watch out for that. Wow, good job. I'm a huge fan of the Studio Ghibli movies. This one I don't think has been getting quite the same ratings as those typically do, the Studio Ghibli ones, especially the Hayao Miyazaki directed ones. Those usually just get like 8, 9, 10s, 5,000 bajillions, get incredibly high ratings. And this one I think has been a little bit more average, slightly above average, but I still might look into this one, especially since those Studio Ghibli movies, man, once they, like, I'm sad that I haven't really been around to see a lot of them in theaters because they are hard to track down, and the prices on those DVDs do not drop, man. Those things are still priced like they came out yesterday, but they're good. All right, that's going to conclude the box office segment, and I think I'm going to take a quick break after that, get a drink of water, and come back with the news and the 2 new releases that we got. So stick around real quick. Just going to be a quick break, and you're listening to your weekly movie rewind. I'm Garrett Neal, and this is Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.
Consent.
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 Consent is a clear yes. It's on
College Connection.
Yo, welcome back everybody to another episode. Wow, I'm just a mess. Welcome back from the break to episode 8 of your weekly movie rewind. I am Garrett Neal, having it really together as I always do. And let's get into some news. Intro, weird news music. That would be cool if I had it, but I don't. Just a few things to talk about. First, we got, there was a trailer for HBO's made-for-TV movie, I guess, of Fahrenheit 451, starring Michael B. Jordan. And dude, like, at this point, I'm really down for anything that Michael B. Jordan's in. I haven't really seen him, like, I don't really think he's been in anything that I haven't liked. I've really liked Black Panther, obviously loved Creed, loved Fruitvale Station, but those are also all Ryan Coogler films, so we'll see how he does sans Coogler. I'm also always wary of when an actor is in one like huge film and then all of a sudden we see them everywhere. I feel like that happened with Joseph Gordon-Levitt was the last one I remembered. Around the time of Dark Knight Rises, he was in that, and he was just in like a ton of other films. Looper, Dear John, or the whatever the porn movie was. I don't remember. I think that was the name of the movie, but and a handful of other stuff. I just felt like I saw him everywhere, and then he disappeared. And sometimes when that happens, they start being in some movies that maybe aren't great. But of course, this one is based off the Ray Bradbury book, which I have not read. Yikes! I know it's classic. Whatever. Sue me. I don't know. Looks good. Looks interesting. Definitely down. Next piece of news I wanted to talk about was Josh Josh Whedon. Joss Whedon was taken, stepped back from the directorial role of Batgirl, which he'd been attached to for a while. He's got a lot of connections in Warner Brothers. He came in for some reshoots of Justice League and had been on the docket to direct Batgirl, but he stepped down, saying that he felt that he didn't really have a story that he wanted to find. It just, the reason he hasn't said anything earlier is because it took him a long time to figure out that, hey, maybe he didn't have anything to say about Batgirl. But another thing some people are saying might be a factor is that in the atmosphere we have right now, with Patty Jenkins directing Wonder Woman and Ryan Coogler for Black Panther, that maybe having Joss Whedon be the guy to tell Batgirl's story might have faced some backlash, and that might be a part of why he stepped down, or maybe there was some external pressure for him to step down. I don't know, but just interesting. I don't really care. I'm not super invested in what DC is putting out right now. Justice League I thought was alright. I did love Wonder Woman, but I'm not excited for Aquaman. It's whatever. And I felt like Batgirl was just so far out of the window, like far away, just wasn't even worried about it. So the final thing that I wanted to talk about was the Jurassic World 3 release date was announced as June 11th, 2021. This one, okay, for those of you that don't know, I am a huge Jurassic Park and Jurassic World fan. I'm wearing my Jeff Goldblum Chaos Theory shirt right now, or Dr. Ian Malcolm Chaos Theory shirt. Definitely Jurassic Park, one of my top 5 favorite films of all time. Jurassic World, not that high, but I still enjoyed it. It was certainly a different kind of film than the original Jurassic Park, but I shouldn't even have to say the original. They have different names. Jurassic World, completely different film than Jurassic Park. Jurassic World, just a complete over-the-top popcorn action movie, and I thought it was a very good one of those. Did a great job. Hit all of the genre cliches, but that ending fight was incredible, and the action and the dinosaurs were all super fun to watch, so I enjoyed it. Second one isn't even out yet, and they're already announcing the release date for this third one. That kind of bothers me a little bit, that you're not even going to wait for that to blow up, or what if it gets negative reviews? You don't know. Maybe they're worried about it getting negative reviews, so they don't want to release it in the release date in the wake of those negative reviews. That wouldn't surprise me personally from what I've seen in the trailers. Obviously, you can never judge anything on the trailers, but most of the time you can get a decent idea of what's going to happen, and it seems to me it's got the same action vibe as the first one, where things are blowing up all the time. There's a volcano, dinosaurs are running around. Obviously, you've still got the same just complete one-note characters. But with the music and the way they cut it, they're like, oh, but this time it's going to be a thriller and suspense movie. Like, you can't have a thriller and suspense movie that's still hitting all the tropes of an action movie and then just throw, like, some weird string music on top of it and expect it to work. So I think it's going to be very tonally confused, which it cannot afford to be. And if it does get those negative reviews, maybe that's why they put the release date out now. I don't know. The other thing that bothers me is that they gave an exact date, and I just feel like there's so much thing to happen. It's 4 years away. 4 years away. That is, wow, gross, sorry. So much can happen between now and 2021. If they just said summer 2021, that would have been fine. That's malleable. You can move it around. You get to do a little buffer. But now you set that one date, so anything that happens, you're going to have to say, oh, we're going to push it back. And that's going to come with some negative press that it feels like pushbacks always do, even if it's not always a bad thing. I kind of also wish studios would kind of buy into this thing that video game companies are starting to do. And I think I talked about this before, and they're also completely different industries, but give us the release date like a few months away, or like 6-7 months away, and that way you can just slowly build up the hype till then. If you release it this, like, people aren't even going to be thinking about Jurassic World 3 in 2019 or 2020-ish, after it's been a while since Jurassic World 2 come out, especially if that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. And then there's going to be, they're going to have to kind of keep up this, like, hey guys, remember Jurassic World 3, Jurassic World 3, and it's like, oh my god, what if they just hadn't announced it, and then they announced it, a couple, like 4, 5, 6 months before the movie, and then just came out with a trailer right then. That would be hype. I'm just saying. But, is what it is. That's all the news that I really, obviously, there's always more stories, but it's just, there's so much, especially in the movie industry, that it's just like, so-and-so rumored to do this, so-and-so rumored to do this, this movie might be happening, and it's like, I don't really want to talk about that stuff until it's concrete. And there's also, again, there's a lot of stuff that happened on, like, Wednesday of last week, and at that point, it's kind of old hat stuff that I don't really feel like is relevant anymore. Without further ado, let's jump right into the new releases. We got 2 new releases, wide releases at least, this week. Red Sparrow and Death Wish. My brief, I guess we'll start out with Red Sparrow. Red Sparrow is the new spy movie starring Jennifer Lawrence, Joel Edgerton, directed by Francis Lawrence, and it's a spy thriller. Francis Lawrence, of course, directed I Am Legend and a couple of the Hunger Games movies. So good job. Actually, all the Hunger Games movies except the first one, which I kind of thought was the best one, but whatever. I Am Legend was pretty good except for the ending. Red Sparrow. Jennifer Lawrence is a spy who goes to this special spy school in Russia, and wow, okay. This is what the IMDb summary says, and she's forced to use her body as a weapon. It's like, wow, that's going to play well. Oh, my God. And yeah, she has to target a CIA agent and threatens to unravel the security, but like, whatever, just from the trailers, to me, this looked like the most bog standard spy movie, which, like, bog standard is pretty bad, because if you're a really bad movie, sometimes you can at least laugh at that, and if you're really good, then obviously you're having a good time. And standard, it's just boring, and I honestly, like, the reviews for it are even worse than what I thought they were going to be. It's got a 5.3 on IMDb right now, 56 Metascore, Rotten Tomato score, a solid 63. I mean, I guess that's maybe around where I thought, but I thought it would be like, I thought it might be like a 6.5, something like that. Like, not terrible, but just kind of like meh. But it's gotten some bad looks, and that makes me very excited to see it this weekend, because I want to see some bad movies. I haven't seen some bad movies in a while, and it's gonna be interesting to write a review on that one. But hey, maybe I'll enjoy it. I don't know. That's kind of one of the bittersweet things about this show, is I do like to just kind of give people an idea of what's coming out, and also what people are saying about it, so they can gauge. Maybe they want to see it, maybe they don't. But now I know what the score is, so I'm gonna have to kind of ignore the fact that it's getting terrible reviews when I go into it, which is always hard to do, and you can never really do it completely, because even if I haven't seen reviews for a movie, I'm always going in with some pre-existing expectations of my own, which, to be fair, were not very high for this in the first place. The second wide release, which I was far more excited for, mostly because it's just a straight-up action movie, which is my kind of thing. Although, I mean, I think Red Sparrow is kind of an action movie too, but it's more, I'm more of a mystery. But Death Wish is more just like straight-up action. Has Bruce Willis in it, which is always good. Nobody else I recognize. Well, it's directed by Eli Roth, who is someone that I've heard of. Um, mostly directing other things. Actually, I mean he had a couple of helpful things in Inglourious Bastards, but he actually, I don't know why I've heard of this guy so much, because he hasn't really directed anything super notable. Mostly a producer. Certainly produced some things. I don't know, but I've heard of this. Yeah, I've seen this guy and stuff. Yeah, this guy is in Inglourious Bastards. Okay, well, whatever. I'm just stupid. Yeah, but he's directing this, and this is actually a remake of the 1974 film of the same name, which starred Charles Bronson. And this one was a New York City architect becomes a one-man vigilante squad after his wife is murdered by street punks, and he randomly goes out and kills would-be muggers on the mean streets after dark. Yeah. So this is essentially the same thing, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of what modern take they give on it. A lot of the stuff in the previews has been like some guy on a radio station talking about him, which is interesting. It's based on a book by Brian Garfield. Haven't read it, hadn't heard of it at all. But this one looks like, I think it's going to be a pretty standard action movie. If at best, I think it'll be a good action movie. Kind of the more I see about it, the more I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And it's going to be very interesting how they handle Bruce Willis going out into the streets and beating up criminals. That could be dangerous. We'll see. But I mean, obviously Bruce Willis has a track record. We shall see how that one does. I don't know. It does not have any ratings released right now, which is never a good sign. Yeah, the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be bad. But action movies are primo candidates for the so bad it's good. I mean, there's so many Jason Statham movies are like so bad it's good category. That's it, and that's all I got. The Oscars are this weekend, and I gave my Oscar predictions on some of the on one of the earlier shows. So I didn't really want to run through those again. But here on Radio DePaul this Sunday, we will be covering the Oscars. We'll have a separate panel for each of the Best Picture nominees, as well as one for actors, one for some snubs, some Oscar trivia, a couple other random ones. I'm going to be on a handful of them. We're going to have some other voices you probably heard around the station. It's going to be a good time. It was a good time. I did a couple of them last year. It's always fun. I'm going to have to stay up all the way to the end of the Oscars, which I've never done before because I usually go to bed early. It's going to be a pain. I'm very glad that I'm in the Central Time Zone, because if I was back home in Eastern Time Zone, I would have to stay up till midnight, and that would be terrible because I never do that. But now I only got to go to 11. Oh, it's going to be terrible. But at least I get to talk about movies way more than I should. So hopefully you can tune in then. I'll be there. Hopefully you will too. Blah, blah, blah. All right. It's going to do it. That's a wrap. Cut. Let's take it to the editing room. I don't know. That was good. That's a wrap. Cut. Those were good movie lines. And then I kind of died a horrible, terrible death. You know how I do. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week for episode 9, or maybe the last episode of the quarter before spring break. We'll see. But thank you for listening once again. I am Garrett Neal. This is your Weekly Movie Rewind. This was your Weekly Movie Rewind. And you are listening to Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection.